The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours, and Ambassador Laura Bennett could see the fear in every alien face around the massive chamber. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, their various forms of communication creating a chaotic mix of sounds and lights that the translation system struggled to process in real time. Laura stood at the human delegation's platform, a simple raised disc that gave her a view of the entire assembly. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with gray streaks running through her dark hair and eyes that had seen more diplomatic failures than successes over the past decade. Today would likely add another failure to that list. The Krell Dominion had just delivered their ultimatum. Lord Threx, their military commander, had transmitted the message directly to the council chambers. His 3-meter-tall form filled the holographic display at the center of the room. His 4 arms crossed over his armored chest, his mandibles clicking in what the translation system identified as contempt. The Council has 7 days to surrender control of the Epsilon trade routes. Threx's voice boomed through the speakers. Your defensive fleets are weak. Your weapons are outdated. We have already destroyed the defense stations at Viridian Prime, Halcyon Gate, and New Terra Minor. Civilian casualties number 3 million and rising. Surrender the routes, or we will reduce every station, every colony, every ship in Council space to ash. The hologram cut out, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Chairman Velos of the Vrexian Assembly was the first to speak. His species looked like walking mantises, with elongated heads and multifaceted eyes. We must consider their terms, he said, his voice translator rendering his clicking speech into flat, emotionless standard galactic. The Krell fleet outguns our combined forces by a factor of 4 to 1. Their weapons technology is generations ahead of our own. You want to surrender? The speaker was Ambassador Kira Thane of the Belton Confederacy. Her blue skin darkened with anger. They murdered 3 million civilians. They destroyed ships carrying children, medical supplies, refugees. And you want to give them what they demand? I want our species to survive, Fellows replied. Pride is a luxury we cannot afford against an enemy we cannot defeat. The debate erupted across the chamber. Some delegates argued for immediate surrender. Others called for a desperate defensive stand. A few suggested fleeing to the outer rim and abandoning the core systems entirely. Laura listened to it all with growing frustration. She had known this moment would come eventually. Humanity had been members of the Galactic Council for 200 years, ever since their slower-than-light colony ships had been discovered by a Vrexian exploration fleet. In all that time, humans have maintained their carefully constructed image: peaceful traders, curious explorers, enthusiastic diplomats who preferred negotiation to conflict. The galaxy saw humanity as harmless. Their cargo ships were slow but reliable. Their patrol vessels were lightly armed. Their colonies were prosperous but small. Humans had no territorial ambitions, no aggressive expansion, no military traditions that threatened anyone. It was all a lie, but a necessary one. Laura activated her platform's communication system. Chairman Velos, if I may speak. The mantis-like alien turned his head toward her. Ambassador Bennett, does humanity have a perspective on this crisis? We do, Laura said calmly. Humanity is willing to defend the Epsilon trade routes. We can deploy defensive forces that will be sufficient to deter Krell aggression. The chamber fell silent for a moment, then erupted in what the translation systems identified as laughter. The sound came from a dozen different species, each expressing amusement in their own way. Velos's mandibles clicked rapidly. The Belton representative's skin shifted to a lighter shade of blue. Even some of the more reserved species made sounds that approximated chuckling. Ambassador Bennett, Velos said, and Laura could hear the condescension in his translated voice. We appreciate the sentiment, truly. But humanity has been part of the Council for only 2 centuries. Your fastest ships struggle to match our cargo vessels. Your largest warship, the patrol cruiser Liberty, carries weapons that would barely scratch a Krell destroyer's shields. You have no military tradition, no warrior culture, no experience with large-scale conflict. We know humans are brave, Kira Thane added, her tone gentler than Velus's. The bravery without capability is just suicide. The Krell would destroy your entire fleet in minutes. Lavra kept her expression neutral. Nevertheless, humanity formally volunteers to provide defensive forces for the trade routes. We request that the Council delay any decision on the Krell ultimatum for 3 days. Velus's laugh was bitter. 3 days will not make your ships faster or your weapons stronger, Ambassador. I am sorry, but the Council must face reality. We will vote on the Krell terms within the hour. Laura nodded slowly. Then humanity will act independently. We will defend the trade routes with or without Council approval. That is your right, Velus said dismissively. Though I fear we will be mourning your species' noble sacrifice very soon. The vote proceeded as Laura had expected. 39 species voted to accept the Krell ultimatum. 5 abstained. Only 3 voted against surrender. Humanity, the Belton Confederacy, and the small Kixar Republic. Lavra left the chamber as the other delegates began working out the specifics of their capitulation. She walked through the corridors of the Council station, past alien diplomats who whispered and pointed at the human who had foolishly volunteered her species for extinction. In her private quarters, Laura sat at her desk and activated her secure communication system. The quantum encryption meant her message would take several minutes to reach Earth, but it would be completely untraceable and impossible to intercept. She spoke clearly into the recorder. Ambassador Bennett to Earth Command. Authorization code Bennett 77 Delta Tango. Message for Admiral Drake, priority maximum. The Council has voted to surrender to the Krell. Humanity is proceeding independently. Recommend activation of Protocol Genesis. We need the fleet. She paused, considering her next words carefully. Admiral, we've hidden what we are for 200 years. The galaxy thinks we're harmless traitors. They're about to learn the truth. I hope we're making the right choice. Lavra sent the message and sat back in her chair. Deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, Admiral Kevin Drake would receive her transmission in about 6 minutes. Then the countdown would begin. The galaxy thought humanity was weak. They had no idea what was coming. On Earth, in a facility buried 7 kilometers below the ocean floor, alarms began to sound. Admiral Kevin Drake looked at the message on his screen and felt the weight of millennia settling on his shoulders. He turned to his staff and gave the order that would change everything. Activate Protocol Genesis. Wake the fleet. In hidden dimensional pockets scattered across the galaxy, ancient systems began to power up. Ships that had slept for over 2,000 years slowly opened their eyes. Humanity's true guardians were awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Kevin Drake walked through corridors that had not seen human footsteps in 50 years. The facility beneath the Pacific Ocean stretched for kilometers in every direction. A vast complex carved from the bedrock of Earth's mantle and shielded by technology that made it invisible to every sensor system the modern galaxy possessed. Lieutenant Nicole Price followed 2 steps behind him, her face pale with shock. She had been read into the program only 6 hours ago, pulled from her posting on the patrol cruiser Liberty, and brought to this place that was not supposed to exist. Everything she thought she knew about human history had just been revealed as a carefully maintained fiction. I don't understand, sir, Nicole said, as they descended another level on a gravity lift. The history we all learned, everything about humanity's first contact with the Vrexians, about discovering faster than light travel just 300 years ago. You're saying it's all fake? Kevin glanced back at her. He was a stocky man in his 60s, with graying hair cut military short, and the kind of weathered face that came from making hard decisions for too long. Not fake, Lieutenant. Simplified. The version of history the galaxy knows is true as far as it goes. We just left out a few thousand years. They reached the bottom of the lift and entered a massive chamber. The space was so large that the far walls were barely visible through the dim lighting. Rows of empty docking cradles stretched into the distance, each one designed to hold a vessel that was no longer there. This is Dock 17, Kevin said. One of 33 facilities like this on Earth alone. There are another 112 scattered throughout human-controlled space, all hidden, all waiting. Nicole looked at the empty cradles. What were they for? Come with me, Kevin said. I'll show you. He led her to a side chamber where holographic displays covered the walls. Kevin activated the main projection system, and the room filled with light and images. A star chart appeared, but not one Nicole recognized. The galactic core was in the right place, but the spiral arms were different, the cluster formations strange. This is the galaxy 3,000 years ago, Kevin said. Back when humanity first achieved faster than light travel. We were excited, eager to explore, ready to meet other species and join a galactic community. The image shifted, showing Earth's first colony ships spreading outward from their home system. Nicole watched as the holographic record showed humans making first contact with a dozen different species. But then the image changed. Something dark appeared at the edge of the projection, spreading like ink through water. We found the community we were looking for, Kevin said quietly. But we also found something else. The Void Swarm. The hologram zoomed in on one of the dark patches. Nicole gasped as she saw what it showed. Creatures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Entities that consume matter and energy alike. Ships that could phase through solid objects and delete entire planets from existence. What are they? Nicole whispered. We still don't fully understand, Kevin said. The best theory is that they came from another universe, leaking through weak points in dimensional barriers. They didn't communicate, didn't negotiate, didn't even seem to notice us as intelligent beings. They just consumed everything in their path. The hologram showed battle after battle. Alien fleets throwing themselves at the Void Swarm and being destroyed in seconds. Entire civilizations evacuating their worlds as the darkness spread. Desperate last stands that ended in extinction. The galaxy was losing, Kevin said. Every species we met was on the edge of annihilation. We tried to help at first, offering to evacuate refugees, providing supplies and medicine. But it wasn't enough. The swarm was going to consume everything. The image shifted again, showing a single human ship approaching a swarm hive. The name on the hull read Defiant. Captain Eric Sullivan, Kevin said. He was the one who figured out that conventional weapons weren't working because the swarm existed, partially outside normal space-time. So he started experimenting with weapons that could affect dimensional boundaries. Energy patterns that could tear holes in reality itself. Nicole watched as the Defiant's experimental weapons tore into the swarm hive. For the first time in the holographic record, the swarm entities were treated. Sullivan proved they could be hurt, Kevin said. That was all humanity needed to know. We mobilized. Every resource, every scientist, every engineer. We stripped our colony worlds of materials. We salvaged technology from dying civilizations who gave us everything they had left. We even raided swarm hives for their exotic matter to reverse engineer. The hologram showed humanity's industrial capacity exploding. Shipyards appeared around Earth's moon, around Mars, around every rocky planet and large asteroid in human space. The construction pace was insane, driven by desperation and determination. It took us 200 years to build the Genesis fleet, Kevin said. 13 massive warships, each one designed to fight enemies that could bend the laws of physics. We incorporated technology from 17 different extinct civilizations. We developed weapons that could target things in higher dimensions. We created armor that existed in quantum superposition to resist attacks that could delete matter from existence. The hologram showed the completed Genesis fleet. Nicole stared at the ships in awe. Each one was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons and systems she could not even begin to understand. They made the Council's modern dreadnoughts look like children's toys. The war lasted 800 more years, Kevin continued. Captain Sullivan died fighting at the Battle of Nexus Prime. So did the next 5 fleet commanders. Humanity kept fighting. We learned how the swarm thought, how they moved, how they reproduced. We hunted down every hive, every breeding ground, every dimensional anchor they used to enter our universe. The hologram showed the final battle. Human ships surrounding the last swarm hive, weapons firing in patterns that tore holes in space itself. The hive collapsed inward, taking the last of the swarm with it. Commander Ashley Morgan sealed the dimensional rift they came through, Kevin said. That was 1,000 years ago. The swarm was gone. The war was over, and the galaxy was in ruins. The star chart reappeared, but now it showed vast empty regions where civilizations had been. Only scattered survivors remained, their numbers too small to rebuild their societies. We won, Nicole said softly. Humanity saved the galaxy. We did, Kevin agreed. But victory came with a cost. The surviving species had lost everything. Their worlds were ash. Their cultures were fragments. Their populations were tiny, and they had no memory of the swarm or the war. The trauma was so great that most survivors had blocked it out entirely. The hologram shifted to show human leaders debating in a council chamber. Nicole recognized several faces from history books, though the dates were all wrong. Commander Ashley Morgan wanted to reveal the truth, Kevin said. She argued that the survivors deserved to know what happened, that humanity deserved recognition for our sacrifice. But Admiral Gregory Barnes convinced the leadership to take a different path. The image showed Barnes, a stern-faced man with calculating eyes. Barnes argued that the galaxy needed to heal, and that healing required starting fresh. If we told the survivors that humanity had fought and won a 1,000-year war against cosmic horrors, it would create an unbalanced power dynamic. Some species would worship us. Others would fear us. None of them would see us as equals. So we lied? Nicole asked. We chose to forget, Kevin corrected. We sealed the Genesis fleet in dimensional storage pockets. We deliberately set back our own technology. We destroyed most of our records. We created a new, false history where humanity was just discovering FDL travel for the first time. Then we waited for the survivors to rebuild. The hologram showed human ships approaching Rexian scout vessels, both sides meeting as if for the first time. 200 years ago, we judged the galaxy had recovered enough to accept new members. We entered the Galactic Council as primitive newcomers. We played the role of peaceful traders and curious explorers. We let them think we were harmless. Kevin deactivated the hologram. The chamber fell into darkness, except for the emergency lighting. And now? Nicole asked. Why reveal the truth now? Because the Krell Dominion has forced our hand, Kevin said. They're murdering civilians and threatening the entire council. We can't stand by and watch the galaxy burn again. Not after everything we sacrificed to save it the first time. He turned to face her directly. Lieutenant Price, in approximately 18 hours, the Genesis fleet will activate. For the first time in over 2,000 years, those ships will enter normal space. The galaxy is about to learn what humanity really is. Some species will be grateful. Others will be terrified. but all of them will know the truth. Nicole took a deep breath. What do you need me to do, sir? Help me wake the ships, Kevin said, and hope that we're making the right choice. The Krell fleet hung in space like a swarm of metal predators. 300 warships arranged in precise attack formations around the human colony of New Boston. Lord Threx stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator, watching the countdown timer tick towards 0. All ships report weapons armed and targeting solutions locked, his tactical officer reported. The colony's shields are pathetic. We will punch through them in the first volley. Threx clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. The human colony below held 2 million civilians, most of them families who had settled here 3 generations ago. They had built farms and factories, schools and hospitals. They thought they were safe under the protection of the Galactic Council. They were wrong. Open a channel to the colony, Threx ordered. I want them to hear this. The communication system activated, and Threx's voice boomed across every receiver on New Boston. Attention, human colonists. Your council has abandoned you. Your pathetic patrol ships fled hours ago. You have no defense, no hope, no future. When I give the order, my fleet will reduce your colony to molten slag. I want you to spend your final moments knowing that your leaders failed you, that your species is too weak to matter, that you will die because the galaxy sees you as beneath notice. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Begin firing in 60 seconds. Target the residential sectors first. I want maximum casualties in the opening salvo. Across the Krell fleet, energy banks charged to full power. Missile tubes loaded their warheads. Targeting computers calculated firing solutions that would bring maximum destruction to the colony below. Threx watched the timer count down. 50 seconds. 40, 30. Every sensor on the Devastator screamed an alert simultaneously. Sir! The sensor officer's voice cracked with shock. Multiple spatial anomalies detected. Distance, 2,000 kilometers. Bearing, multiple vectors. Energy signatures are off the scale. What are you talking about? Threx demanded. What anomalies? The main display flickered and changed, showing the space around the fleet. Threx felt his blood run cold. Reality was tearing open. Massive rifts appeared in the fabric of space-time, cracks in the universe that glowed with impossible colors. From each rift, something emerged. Ships, enormous beyond comprehension. Each one larger than Threx's entire fleet combined. 13 vessels materialized from the dimensional tiers, their hulls reflecting starlight in ways that hurt to look at. They moved with perfect precision, positioning themselves in a sphere around the Krell fleet. The colony of New Boston sat safely inside the protective formation. What are those? Threx whispered. His sensor officer was frantically running scans, but the readouts made no sense. Sir, the energy signatures don't match anything in our database. The whole composition is impossible. I'm detecting matter that exists in quantum superposition, weapon systems that reach into higher dimensions. These ships should not exist. On the lead vessel, a communication system activated. A human voice, calm and almost conversational, spoke across all frequencies. Krell Fleet, this is Captain Brandon Cole of the Earth vessel Valiant. We request that you power down your weapons and withdraw from this system immediately. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend this colony. Threx stared at the display. The ship called Valiant was incomprehensible in size. His flagship could fit inside it 100 times over. But he was a Krell warrior, and warriors did not retreat from inferior species like humans. This is Lord Threx of the Krell Dominion. I do not know what trick you are using to project these images, but humanity does not possess ships of this capability. Your primitive technology is no match for Krell might. Stand down or be destroyed. There was a pause, Then the human captain's voice returned. Lord Threx, these are not projections. We are the Genesis fleet, and we have protected this galaxy for longer than your species has existed. Please reconsider your course of action. All ships, Threx roared across the Krell command network. Concentrate all fire on the vessel calling itself Valiant. Destroy it. The Krell fleet responded instantly. 300 warships turned their weapons toward the massive human ship. Energy cannons, plasma batteries, missile launchers, and kinetic accelerators all fired at once. The combined firepower could have cracked the moon. The space between the Krell fleet and the Valiant filled with enough destructive energy to vaporize a city. The barrage hit the Valiant's hull. Every weapon found its target. The explosions lit up local space like a newborn star. Then the light faded, and the Valiant hung in space, completely undamaged. There was not even a scorch mark on its hull. Impossible, Threx breathed. Brandon's voice came across the channel again, still calm. Your weapons are impressive by modern standards, Lord Threx, but the Valiant was designed to fight enemies that could manipulate reality itself. Your conventional firepower cannot harm us. As if to demonstrate, the Valiant activated its defensive screens. A shimmer surrounded the massive ship, a barrier that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Threx could see space itself bending around the vessel, creating a protective layer that conventional weapons could never penetrate. We built this ship to fight the Void Swarm, Brandon continued. Entities that could delete matter from existence, that could phase through solid objects, that could tear holes in dimensions. The Swarm War lasted 1,000 years, Lord Threx. We won. Your fleet is powerful, but you are not the worst thing humanity has ever faced. Threx felt fear for the first time in his military career. What do you want? We want peace, Brandon said simply. We want you to leave this colony and return to Krell space. We want you to tell your leadership that humanity will defend the Epsilon trade routes and that further aggression will not be tolerated. And if I refuse? Threx asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we will demonstrate what the Genesis fleet is truly capable of. The Valiant's primary weapon system activated. Threx watched in horror as a targeting beam locked onto 6 of his battleships, vessels that had served the Krell Dominion for decades. The beam was thin, almost delicate, barely visible against the backdrop of space. Evasive maneuvers. Threx screamed. All ships scatter. The 6 targeted battleships tried to move, their engines burning at maximum power. They were fast, among the quickest capital ships in the galaxy, but they were not fast enough. The Valiant fired. A single coherent beam of energy lanced across space, passing through all 6 battleships in a perfect line. The ships did not explode. They did not break apart. They simply ceased to exist. Their matter converted to harmless energy in the span of a microsecond. But Threx saw something that shocked him more than the destruction. Just before each ship vanished, he detected emergency transport signatures. Hundreds of them from each vessel. Sir, his communication officer said in disbelief, we are receiving hails from escape pods. The crews from the destroyed ships are alive. All of them. Brandon's voice returned. We transported every member of your crews to safety before destroying their vessels. We have no desire to kill Lord Threx, but we will protect the innocent. Threx looked at his tactical display. 6 battleships gone in an instant, but not a single casualty. The precision required for that feat was beyond anything he had imagined possible. These humans had targeted individual crew members across multiple ships and transported them to safety in the microseconds before their vessels were destroyed. The rest of your fleet is untouched, Brandon said. Take your people and leave. Tell your leaders what you have seen here. Tell them that humanity has returned to active defense of this galaxy. Tell them that we seek peace, but we will not allow aggression against the innocent. Threx stood in silence for a long moment. Every instinct screamed at him to attack, to fight, to refuse to retreat. But he was not a fool. His fleet had just encountered technology that was centuries beyond our own, wielded by a species that had hidden its true nature for generations. "All ships," he said quietly, "stand down. Recover the escape pods and prepare to return to crawl space." "A wise decision, Lord Threx," Brandon said. "We hope that next time we meet, it will be as friends rather than enemies." The Krell fleet began its withdrawal, collecting the hundreds of escape pods that drifted in space. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light speeds, Threx looked one more time at the 13 massive ships that surrounded the human colony. "Captain Cole," he transmitted, "how long has humanity possessed these vessels?" There was a pause before Brandon answered. "Over 2,000 years, Lord Threx. We built them to fight a war that the modern galaxy has forgotten. We hoped we would never need them again. But we will use them if we must." The Krell fleet jumped away, leaving the Genesis fleet alone in orbit around New Boston. On the colony below, 2 million humans emerged from their shelters, looking up at the sky where impossible ships kept watch. Throughout the galaxy, every major civilization detected the energy signatures from the battle. Sensor arrays went into overload trying to process the readings. Scientists scrambled to explain what they had just witnessed. And on the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Laura Bennett prepared to explain to 47 species that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after the Krell fleet's retreat. Every delegate arrived in a state of shock and confusion. The sensor data from New Boston had spread across the galaxy like wildfire, and nobody knew what to make of it. Laura Bennett stood at the human delegation platform, waiting as the chamber filled. She had barely slept since sending her message to Admiral Drake. Now she would have to explain the unexplainable to species who thought they understood the universe. Chairman Velos called the session to order, his mantis-like form rigid with tension. "Ambassador Bennett, the entire galaxy has detected massive energy signatures from the New Boston system. Our sensors recorded the appearance of 13 unknown vessels of impossible size and capability. These ships claim to be human in origin. Before this council demands answers, I will give you the opportunity to provide an explanation voluntarily." Laura took a deep breath. "Thank you, Chairman. I am authorized to transmit a full historical archive to the Council database. This archive contains the complete truth about humanity's origins and our role in galactic history. With your permission, I would like to present a summary before opening the files to full review." "Permission granted," Velos said, "though I suspect many here will find your explanation difficult to believe." Laura activated her platform's holographic system. The display that appeared showed a star chart, but not one that matched modern galactic surveys. Several delegates gasped as they recognized their home systems in unfamiliar positions. "This is the galaxy 3,000 years ago," Laura began, "before any current government existed, before most of your species achieved spaceflight. This is the galaxy as it was when humanity first developed faster-than-light travel." She let that sink in for a moment. Whispers spread through the chamber. The Vrexian delegation looked particularly disturbed. Their official history claimed they had discovered humans only 200 years ago. "We were excited to explore," Laura continued. "We encountered dozens of civilizations, all of them more advanced than us. We learned from them, traded with them, and prepared to join the galactic community." The holographic display changed, showing a dark spreading stain across the star chart. "Then we discovered the Void Swarm." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Most species had no record of anything called the Void Swarm. Laura waited for silence before continuing. "The swarm was an extra-dimensional threat. We still do not fully understand their origin, but they consumed everything they encountered. Entire civilizations were destroyed. Billions died. The galaxy was being devoured system by system. She showed them the historical records. Battles where conventional fleets were torn apart. Planets reduced to ash. Species making desperate last stands against an enemy they could not hurt. Humanity joined the fight, Lavra said quietly. We were young and inexperienced, but we refused to abandon the galaxy to extinction. We studied the swarm. We learned how to hurt them. We developed new technologies specifically designed to fight enemies that existed in higher dimensions. The holographic display showed the construction of the Genesis fleet. Lavra could see the shock on every alien face as they watched. Humanity built weapons of incomprehensible power. The war lasted over 1,000 years, Lavra said. Generation after generation of humans fought and died to protect species they had only just met. We salvaged technology from dying civilizations. We reverse-engineered swarm weapons. We created ships that could fight enemies capable of deleting matter from existence. She showed them Captain Eric Sullivan leading the first successful assault on a swarm hive. Commander Ashley Morgan sealing the dimensional rift that allowed the swarm to enter their universe. Battle after battle where humans refused to surrender, even when defeat seemed certain. We won, Laura said. 1,000 years ago, humanity destroyed the last swarm hive. The galaxy was saved. But the cost was enormous. The display changed to show the aftermath. Vast regions of space empty of all life. Survivors scattered and traumatized. Civilizations reduced to fragments. The surviving species had no memory of the war, Lavra explained. The trauma was so great that most had blocked it out entirely. They knew their civilizations had fallen, but not why. They were struggling to rebuild with tiny populations and limited resources. Kira Thane of the Belton Confederacy spoke up, her voice shaking. If humanity saved the galaxy, why did you hide it? Why did you lie to us for 200 years? Lavra met her eyes. Because Admiral Gregory Barnes convinced our leadership that the galaxy needed to heal, not to be dominated by its saviors. If we had revealed the truth, some species would have worshipped us. Others would have feared us. None would have seen us as equals. So we made a choice. The holographic display showed the Genesis fleet being sealed in dimensional storage. We hid our ships, Lavra said. We destroyed most of our records. We deliberately set back our own technology. We created a false history where humanity was just discovering FTL travel. Then we waited for the galaxy to rebuild. You waited 2,000 years? Velos asked in disbelief. We waited for you to be strong enough to stand on your own, Lavra corrected. 200 years ago, we judged the galaxy had recovered sufficiently. We entered the Galactic Council as primitive newcomers. We played the role you expected of us. Peaceful traders. Curious explorers. No threat to anyone. Why reveal the truth now? Asked the Kixar representative, a crystalline being whose voice sounded like wind chimes. Because the Krell Dominion forced our hand, Lavra said. They murdered 3 million civilians. They threatened to destroy the trade routes. The council voted to surrender rather than fight. We could not stand by and watch the galaxy burn again. Not after everything we sacrificed to save it the first time. She deactivated the holographic display and faced the assembly directly. The Genesis fleet has activated. For the first time in over 2,000 years, those ships have entered normal space. We use them to defend New Boston. We will use them to defend the trade routes. We will use them to protect the innocent. And if we refuse this protection? Velos asked carefully. If we see these ships as a threat rather than a defense? Then we will respect your choice, Lavra said simply. Any species that wishes to reject humanity's involvement is free to do so. We will not force our protection on anyone, but we will not hide any more either. The truth is out there now. The galaxy knows what we really are. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Every delegate was processing information that rewrote their understanding of galactic history. Finally, Kirathane spoke. I need to ask, Ambassador Bennett, if humanity possessed this power for 2,000 years, why did you never use it to conquer? Why did you never demand tribute or territory or resources? You could have ruled the entire galaxy. Lara smiled sadly. Because we learned something during the Swarm War. Ambassador Thane, we learned that power without restraint leads to destruction. We watched civilizations fall because they prioritized domination over cooperation. We decided that we would rather be guardians in the shadows than tyrants in the light. And now? Velos asked. What does humanity want now that the secret is revealed? We want to share our defensive technology with any species that will accept it, Lara said. We want to maintain the Genesis fleet as a deterrent against existential threats. We want to be partners with the Council, not masters over it. We want what we have always wanted: peace, prosperity, and a galaxy where all species can thrive. She paused, then added, We also want you to know that we are sorry for the deception. We believed hiding the truth was necessary, but we understand if you feel betrayed by our lies. We ask for your forgiveness, but we will understand if you cannot give it. The delegates began debating among themselves. Some were clearly angry at the deception. Others were grateful for the protection. A few seemed terrified of humanity's revealed power. Velos raised his hand for silence. The Council will need time to process this information and review the historical archives. We will reconvene in 3 days to discuss how to proceed. Until then, Ambassador Bennett, I must ask, will the Genesis fleet remain active? The ships will return to dimensional storage, Lara said. They will activate only in response to threats that the Council cannot handle through conventional means. We have no desire to intimidate or dominate. We only want to ensure that the galaxy never again faces extinction without defense. Kirathane stood up. Ambassador Bennett, the Belton Confederacy would like to formally thank humanity for their sacrifice during the Swarm War and for their intervention at New Boston. Whatever happens next, we will not forget that humans died to protect species they barely knew. Several other delegates voiced similar sentiments. Not all of them, but enough to give Lara hope that the galaxy might accept humanity's true nature. As the session ended and delegates filed out, Lara remained at her platform. She activated her communicator and spoke quietly. Admiral Drake, this is Bennett. The truth is out. The galaxy knows. Now we wait to see if they can forgive us for lying, or if we just made the biggest mistake in human history. 3 days after Laura's revelation to the Galactic Council, the political landscape of the galaxy had completely transformed. The historical archives humanity released were being studied by scientists and scholars across 47 different species. Some findings were celebrated, others disputed, but nobody could deny the evidence. On the bridge of the Valiant, Captain Brandon Cole stood watching the view screen as his ship prepared to return to dimensional storage. Around him, his crew worked efficiently at stations designed for battles against impossible enemies. Most of them were young, trained in secret on simulators that mimicked these ancient vessels. They had done well during the confrontation with the Krell fleet. Lieutenant Nicole Price approached from the tactical station. Captain, all systems are ready for dimensional shift. We can depart whenever you give the order. Brandon nodded but did not immediately respond. He was looking at the planet New Boston below them, where 2 million colonists were going about their lives, saved from destruction by ships they never knew existed. Lieutenant, do you think we did the right thing? Brandon asked. Revealing ourselves, I mean. Nicole considered the question carefully. I think we did what was necessary, sir. The Krell were murdering civilians. The Council was going to surrender. Somebody had to act. That is not quite what I asked, Brandon said with a slight smile. Necessary and right are not always the same thing. Before Nicole could respond, the communication system activated. Admiral Drake's face appeared on the screen, transmitted from Earth. Captain Cole, we have received word from the Galactic Council. They have completed their initial review of the historical archives and wish to discuss terms for cooperation with humanity. What kind of terms? Brandon asked. The specifics are being negotiated by Ambassador Bennett, but the framework is straightforward. 23 species have agreed to accept human defensive technology sharing. 15 have requested that the Genesis fleet remain on standby as a rapid response force. 8 species have declined any further involvement with humanity and are withdrawing from the Council entirely. Brandon felt a weight settle on his chest. 8 species are leaving because of us. They fear us, Drake said bluntly. They see power of our magnitude and imagine all the ways it could be used against them. No amount of reassurance will change that. We knew this would happen when we chose to reveal the truth. And the Krell? Nicole asked. The Krell Dominion has issued a formal statement. Lord Threx has returned to their capital and reported everything he witnessed. Their leadership is divided. Some want to continue their expansion. Others argue that fighting humanity would be suicide. Our intelligence suggests they will withdraw from the Epsilon trade routes and focus on internal consolidation for the foreseeable future. Brandon allowed himself a moment of relief. So we achieved our primary objective. The trade routes are secure. For now, Drake agreed. But Captain, there is something else. Something you need to see. The Admiral's face disappeared, replaced by a star chart showing the galactic rim. A small red indicator blinked at the edge of the known universe. What am I looking at? Brandon asked. 3 hours ago, a deep space monitoring station detected an unusual signal from beyond the rim. The signal appears to be a response to the energy signatures from the Genesis fleet's activation. Someone or something out there noticed when we woke the ships. Nicole leaned closer to the screen. A response? You mean something sent a message? We do not know yet, Drake said. The signal is encoded in mathematics we have not seen since the Swarm War. We are working on translation, but preliminary analysis suggests it might be a recognition protocol. As if something ancient has been waiting for the Genesis fleet to activate again. Brandon felt a chill run down his spine. You think there might be more swarm out there? I think we do not know what is out there, Drake said carefully. The void swarm came from outside our universe. We sealed the rift they used, but we never confirmed that there were no other entry points. And now something has noticed that humanity's guardians are awake again. The implications hung heavy in the air. The Genesis fleet had been built to fight extra-dimensional threats. If something beyond the galactic rim was responding to their activation, it might mean the ancient war was not as finished as humanity had believed. What are your orders, sir? Brandon asked. Return the Valiant to dimensional storage as planned. But keep your crew on standby. If this signal turns out to be a threat, we will need the fleet ready to deploy immediately. The transmission ended, leaving Brandon and Nicole alone on the bridge. So much for peace, Nicole said quietly. Peace is never permanent, Brandon replied. Every generation has to fight for it in their own way. Our ancestors fought the swarm. We might have to fight whatever noticed us waking up. He turned to face his crew. All hands, prepare for a dimensional shift. We are going back into storage, but this is not goodbye. We may be needed again sooner than we hoped. The Valiant began its transition sequence. Reality bending around the massive ship as it prepared to slip back into the hidden dimension, where it had waited for over 2,000 years. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Council station, Lavra sat in her private quarters, reviewing the agreements that had been hammered out over 3 days of intense negotiation. The deal was better than she had hoped, but worse than she had wanted. Humanity would share defensive shield technology with 23 species. The Genesis fleet would serve as a rapid response force, but only for threats deemed existential by a majority council vote. Human ships would be monitored by independent observers to ensure they were not used for aggressive purposes. In exchange, the remaining council species acknowledged humanity's historical role in saving the galaxy and agreed not to sanction or restrict human activities. It was a compromise. But compromises always left everyone slightly unsatisfied. A chime at her door announced a visitor. Lavra opened it to find Kira Thane standing in the corridor. "Ambassador Bennett, may I speak with you privately?" "Of course," Lavra said, gesturing for her to enter. Kira settled into a chair, her blue skin shifting to a darker shade that indicated serious thought. "I wanted to thank you again for what humanity did at New Boston. My people have reviewed the historical archives. The Belton Confederacy was one of the species your ancestors saved during the Swarm War. We had no memory of it, but the genetic evidence is clear. Without human intervention, my species would have gone extinct 1,000 years ago." "You do not need to thank us," Lavra said. "We did what anyone would have done." "But you did not," Kira countered. "You did what almost nobody would have done. You saved the galaxy, then deliberately forgot your own heroism so the rest of us could rebuild without living in your shadow. That kind of selflessness is rare." Lavra smiled sadly. "Some species think it was manipulation rather than selflessness. The 8 that left the council certainly see it that way. Fear makes people see threats everywhere," Kira said. "But most of us understand what you gave up. Power, recognition, gratitude. You traded all of that for the chance to be equals with the species you saved. I do not know if the Belton Confederacy would have made the same choice. I hope you never have to find out," Lavra said. Kira stood to leave, but paused at the door. "Ambassador, there is something I need to tell you. The signal from the galactic rim. We detected it too. Our scientists believe it might be a warning beacon, something left behind by a civilization that fought the swarm before humanity did." Lavra felt her blood run cold. "A warning about what?" "We do not know yet. But if there were other civilizations fighting the swarm in previous cycles, and if they left warnings, then perhaps the threat is not as extinct as we believed." After Kira left, Lavra sat in silence, thinking about the future. The galaxy now knew that humanity had been its secret protector for millennia. Some were grateful. Others were afraid. A few had already turned away, but the revelation had achieved its purpose. The trade routes were safe. The Krell had backed down. And if a new threat emerged from beyond the rim, humanity would no longer have to face it alone, on Earth. In the facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Kevin Drake stood with Nicole Price, watching the last systems power down as the Genesis fleet completed its return to dimensional storage. "Do you think they will ever trust us?" Nicole asked. "Some will, some will not," Kevin said. "Trust is earned through actions repeated over time. We proved we could fight. Now we must prove we will not abuse that power. It may take another 200 years before the galaxy truly believes we mean no harm. And if the signal from the rim turns out to be a threat, then we fight again," Kevin said simply. "That is what the Genesis fleet was built for. Not conquest, not domination. Protection. If something worse than the Krull comes from beyond the stars, we will be ready." He turned to face Nicole directly. "Lieutenant, I am promoting you to commander and assigning you to the monitoring division. Your job will be to watch for any signs of swarm activity or similar threats. If something is out there, I want to know about it before it reaches inhabited space. Yes, sir, Nicole said. I will not let you down. As Nicole left, Kevin stood alone in the empty facility. The ships were sleeping again, hidden in dimensions that bent the laws of physics. But they could wake at any moment. And if the